Round one.
Hey guys, today we're going to cover a hero that I didn't cover on its release, and it's a hero that's been requested quite a few times. So yeah, we're going to do a Gladiator guide today. So as usual, we're going to start by, or rather we're going to start with how to play as Gladiator, and we're going to go through the damage and his basic attacks to start off with. Generally speaking, Gladiator has average to low damage. His damage doesn't really ramp up, or it doesn't ramp up at all actually as he combos attacks. His light attacks are doing 15 damage a pop, and his heavy attacks are doing 30 damage. An interesting thing are that the dash lights are 20 damage. Of course, you got to watch out with the dash lights in particular, because if they're simply blocked, then your opponent's going to get a free guard break. If you whiff it, your opponent's going to get a free... Well, they're going to get a free guard break. They're going to get a free almost whatever they want. The recovery time on these moves is huge. So if you whiff it, and your opponent sees that it's going to miss, they're going to be able to queue up a free heavy against you, or whatever they want pretty much. The forward dash attack though is particularly fast as far as dash attacks go, so sometimes it can come in handy, but like I said, you got to be very careful. Generally speaking, I only throw it out myself to punish my opponent for certain things. You've got a shinobi that's flipped backwards out to do something else, or you've got a berserker who's done a backwards zone, then maybe you want to do this move to punish them. Just, like I said, be careful. Another thing to note about Gladiator's attacks is the heavy. The heavy attack is fast. It can be cancelled very quickly into other moves. The other thing to note about the heavies though, one of the really good things about the heavies is that it has the same sort of property as Centurion, as Aramusha, in the sense that you cannot very easily guard break a Gladiator out of their heavy attack. The window that you can guard break a Gladiator out of their heavy attack is very small right at the start, so you can use it to punish guard breaks, you can use it to punish mix-ups, I guess, where one of the options is to go into guard break, the other option is maybe a slower move where your heavy will land first. And I guess while we're talking about attacks and damage, it'd be worth noting that the damage on the skewer attack is high. Yeah, this is going to be landing 37 damage out in the open, or you can wait for a couple ticks of bleed. Specifically, you're waiting for the second tick of bleed to land on your opponent and then throw them into a wall, and in total you're going to be able to get 50 damage. 20 of it is going to be bleed, and 30 of it from your heavy once they hit the wall. So good damage on the skewer. So let's talk about parry punishes and a little bit about deflects. I mean, we already kind of talked about it, but hey. So for Gladiator, punishing your opponent when you parry an attack is extremely simple. From heavy attacks, generally speaking, you're going to get a guard break into a heavy of your own, which is going to land 30 damage, and that's it. I mean, of course, you want to continue this combo on into something else, like maybe another heavy, cancel that into a light. As usual, mixing stuff up, you might want to continue into a skewer and then cancel that into something else, but you're going to land 30 damage guaranteed. If it's a ranged heavy though, from like a Nobushi or a Valkyrie for example, then of course you're not going to get the guard break. So in these instances, you want to do a forward dash light attack, like we discussed before, the really punishable thing. But you should be able to land one of these within the time limit that you've got. This is going to land you 20 damage, which is good. You could also land a light attack in this time, but that's only 15, so you're going to want to go for that forward dash light to get the maximum punish on whatever it is you're doing. So next up is the light parry. Again, very simple. You parry a light attack, doesn't matter what type of opponent it is, a ranged one or a closer up in your face one, you're just going to get a standard heavy. You don't need to guard break for it, obviously, you just go straight into the heavy, and again, that's 30 damage, so not all that much. So if we're wanting to get more damage out of these punishes, out of these same situations where you would normally be able to parry, then maybe you're going to want to look for a deflect instead. And like we said before, the deflect leads into the skewer. And this is going to do more damage than your parry punishes. It's going to be 37 damage if you just sit there with the bleed and let it ramp all the way up to 37 damage. or it's going to deal 50 if you throw them into the wall, and if you throw them into the wall and land your heavy. There are a couple things that are, well, there are a couple of things that are really important when it comes to the skewer when you're deflecting, or, well, especially when you're deflecting actually. In one instance, first things first, if your opponent's back is directly to a wall and you throw them into the wall, you're going to do the little shield bash to the face, which is going to do a stun. Often you're going to find that you're not going to be able to land a heavy from this because they recover too fast and are able to block it. So in these situations, I'd recommend doing a forward dash light. Again, this is going to land in time before they can block it, and you'll get 20 damage. It's not the 30 damage, but like we said, the 30 damage can get blocked for, well, not 0 because it will do chip damage, but very little damage. Oh yeah, the last thing to note about the skewer is that you really need to be careful of opponents with armor. And this especially applies when you're deflecting, because your opponent is going to do an attack. If you deflect the initial attack and they instantly combo into another attack, if they have armor, the skewer is not going to interrupt them. They're going to be able to continue on into that second attack, and it's going to hit you. One, they're going to trade damage, so you might get some skewer damage, and they're going to hit you with the second attack. And you don't have armor when you skewer, so this is going to interrupt your skewer. You're not even going to get the maximum skewer damage. So yeah, really be careful of opponents with armor when you're deflecting. Okay, so let's talk about out of stamina punishes. Again, not too difficult. There's a little bit of intricacy with it, but hey. So when you do an out of stamina punish, when you parry your opponent and the parry has left them out of stamina, you're going to guard break them as normal, and you want to throw them, if you're looking at a compass, you want to throw them from your character northwest, forward and left basically. I found is the most consistent way. You'll land it every time. If you throw them in any other direction, it tends to be the case that they get up before the second portion of the punish lands. So anyway, throw them forward and left at the same time and start spamming dash, I guess, forward dash. And as soon as you forward dash a little bit, then you want to press your light attack, so you do a forward dash light, and then once that lands, you're going to have enough time to do a heavy on top of that, so that's going to total 50 damage. The other out of stamina punish, which is when your opponent is already out of stamina and they're throwing an attack and you parry them, and that parry is going to throw them to the floor from the parry alone. You can do 2 heavies while they're on the floor. Try not to change guard direction. When you parry, just throw the heavy from whatever guard stance you're already in, and that way you'll be able to land both heavies. And it doesn't matter because heavies are the same damage from all directions, so that's going to be 60 damage total for that out of stamina punish. There is another out of stamina punish. It's not really worth putting down here because it's really inconsistent. It's just got really precise timing, and I would just stick with the ones that are here. Okay, we're really moving through the guide quite quickly. Gladiator's fairly simple, just takes a little bit of playing like all heroes. We're going to move on to some of the mechanics that Gladiator has at his disposal, some of the tools that he has. We already went over the skewer, so there's not necessarily much point in going over that. I guess if we were to talk about the skewer, we'd be thinking about what we can do with it. Generally speaking, just simply throwing it out, you're going to get parried. If your opponent's out of stamina, you're going to get parried. It doesn't matter. You're just going to get parried, and it is a really stamina intensive move. So when you get parried, in all likelihood, you're going to be out of stamina, and they're going to get an out of stamina punish on you. So I would try not to throw it all the way out if you can. That being said, if you don't throw it all the way out, then it's got no threat, and there's no point in using it at all. So you do actually have to throw it all the way out sometimes. Otherwise, you've got no mix-up if you want to mix up here. This is not what Gladiator's kit's all about. It's just something that you can use, and you definitely don't need to incorporate it if you want to be using Gladiator optimally at all. Generally, I save skewers for deflects, and that's about it. Anyway, if you do go for a skewer out of neutral, I say out of neutral, it has to be at the end of a combo, then generally speaking, you're going to let it fly for a little bit, cancel it into probably a guard break. This is to catch people who want to dodge it rather than parry it. So if you notice your opponent trying to dodge it a lot, when you throw it all the way out, maybe for the first time, then that's what you want to opt for. Of course, you could cancel it into a light attack, so that when they go for a parry, the light attack goes through their guard. You can cancel it into a heavy attack, and oftentimes this will go through their guard as well, especially if they're a slower hero. That's only if they're going for the parry, which often people will be waiting long enough to see the cancel anyway and then decide after that point, so they'll just stand there and wait. And if they're a decent player, they'll just be able to observe and react accordingly. Next up in the kit is the toe poke. I actually forgot what the name is for this move, but let's be honest, it's Latin and nobody cares. Anyway, the toe poke is an interesting move. I like it in some senses. I mean, I like it because it's a move that's fair. It's entirely punishable. It's kind of quick, I guess, but it's not hard to dodge. And if you do dodge it, you get a free guard break on your opponent, no matter what state you're in. If you're out of stamina and you dodge it, you get a free guard break on your opponent. If you've got stamina and you dodge it, you get a free guard break on the Gladiator. So there's that. It only does 10 damage. Primarily, it's another move for mixing up. So you're maybe jumping in with some shield bashes, stunning your opponent, mixing it up with your zone attack, and just throwing it out there so that your opponent is on their toes. Excuse the pun. There are some really important things to note when using the toe poke. First and foremost, if you use it against an opponent who's out of stamina, obviously everybody knows if you land it on somebody who's out of stamina, it does some guard and hoe thing and they fall on their back and you get a free heavy. That's great. But when you're using it when you're targeting an out of stamina opponent with it, it's drastically slower. It becomes extremely easy to dodge, and even when they're out of stamina, they're going to get a free guard break on you. This is going to lead into probably a wall bang and a heavy attack from your opponent. So I would really refrain from actually using this against an out of stamina opponent. I would refrain from using it out of neutral because of its punishability. There is a couple situations where I do use it and I would use it. One, like I said, when mixing it up with loads of other things, especially when your opponent's stunned. Two, it's not a bad move to use after successfully landing a hit. So if you land a light attack or you land a heavy attack out of neutral, combo into this. It's not a true combo, but move into this, and often your opponent won't dodge it until they get the hang of it. And so you're just adding that extra 10 damage on top of your attacks. If you land a light attack into this and this lands 2, that's 25 damage. That's a whole bar of HP. So in that sense, it's really good. And they're hit stunned for a little while after they initially get hit by the attack. Not long enough for them not to be able to dodge it, but long enough for them not really to be necessarily thinking about the next incoming move clearly until they get the hang of it. Again, once they get the hang of it, as soon as they get hit by an attack, they're going to try and dodge afterwards because they're expecting the toe poke coming in. And like I said before, they're going to be able to get a free guard break and a big punish on you. At that point, you're going to want to stop using it and maybe mix it up with landing a light attack and going straight into a guard break. This might catch somebody preemptively dodging a toe poke that they're expecting. That way you keep it fresh, where they're a little bit hesitant to maybe dodge straight away because they're scared of that guard break. Okay, one more mechanic before we get onto the big thing, the Gladiator thing, the big thing that makes Gladiator as good as Gladiator is. But before that, we're going to talk about the dash X, which is the shield bash. The shield punt, you punch them in the face and they get stunned. It does decent stamina damage. It's not bad for just harassing your opponent's stamina, keeping them on the defensive rather than the offense. It's a good move versus a lot of opponents' mix-ups. I'm thinking about things like a Raider unblockable mix-up. If you're not confident in your ability to just sit there and react to it, then maybe you want to side dash and shield bash this. It's going to dodge the unblockable, it's going to dodge the potential top light that comes out, and it's going to dodge an unblockable cancel into guard break, because once you've entered straight, as long as you press it straight away, you're now in this side dash shield bash, and that can't be guard broken out of. So if you're not so confident in reacting to mix-ups, it can be a good go-to. A couple of things I wouldn't use it necessarily, I wouldn't overuse it against, would be, it seemed like it'd be great against Warden's shoulder bash. It does cancel out a lot of the options. If the Warden, however, just goes for a charged shoulder bash and you go for this instinctively, then the charged shoulder bash is going to land. It does have other uses. The animation is somewhat similar to your zone attack. It applies a stun to keep your opponent on the back foot. And mixing this in with some heavy cancels into lights, heavy cancels into guard breaks, sometimes can catch your opponent by surprise. What works surprisingly often is to dash shield bash into a heavy, cancelling the heavy into a toe poke. Works more often than not. Well, unless you do it multiple times. And of course, any move, if you continuously do it without any sort of mix-up, of course your opponent's going to learn what's coming. The better the player, the faster they learn what's coming, so you might not want to even do it more than once. Okay, so lastly we're going to go on to Gladiator's zone attack, which is bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. It's one of the best moves in the game. I feel confident in saying that. It is one of the best, if not the best move in the game. And that's for a couple reasons. One, it breaks guards. You can't block it. You can't just turtle against it. You have to do something against it. Two, it's quite quick. It's fast. Three, even if you dodge the shield bash, you don't get a punish on your opponent. Yeah. It's an unpunishable move, which is I say unpunishable. It's not unpunishable. You could side dash light it as an assassin, for example, and you'd get that side dash light damage against it. Probably. Even then, he can block it. Even then, he can probably parry it, depending on how fast your side dash light is and how fast your opponent is at reacting to what you've done. This is because you can cancel the second portion of it, and you can cancel it really fast. So you can do the initial shield bash portion, cancel the second portion, and go straight into a parry. It's strong. You can react to a guard break attempt to it. I mean it. You can react to guard breaks attempts with this, and you can get good at it, and you can fairly consistently react to guard break attempts with this. If you see the startup animation and the little indicator for your opponent trying to guard break you, and you just press that zone attack, it'll go and cancel their guard break and land you 20 damage. That is... Ooh, that's strong. That's strong. That's why a good gladiator is good. So yeah, very strong. 20 damage is a good amount of damage as well, and it's great for netting that last bit of HP from your opponent. Of course, they're going to probably expect it towards the end, and if they have a character that can punish you, then they can punish you, but it's never a big punish. The biggest sort of punish that you can sort of look for is a light attack, or a ward in side dashing, and side dash into shoulder bash, and they'll get a double light attack. That's probably the biggest punish that you're going to get. Oh wait, no, probably a shaman side dash heavy. Oh, actually, probably a peacekeeper side dash heavy into a bleed. Actually, no, probably a raider side dash guard break. Probably raider side dash guard break. That's probably the biggest punish you're going to receive, if that. And actually, raider side dash guard break, you can counter guard break it if you cancel the second portion of the zone. Yeah, scratch that. So anyway, it's strong. You can use it at all sorts of times. You can mix up with it. Gladiator has a good stamina bar, fast regenning. Pretty sure it's bigger than... Wait, hang on, let me just check. Pretty sure it's a bigger stamina resource than most heroes, or than a lot of heroes. Just use it in the middle of your chains. If you're looking at the gameplay in the background of me playing Gladiator, you'll notice that I refuse to use the zone as much as possible. Well, I say as much as possible. I use it sometimes for the sake of demonstration, but this move is so strong. It's so strong. And so I couldn't stand using it against opponents if I could. It's like, I couldn't stand spamming it against opponents. I used it every so often because otherwise I'm not playing Gladiator. But hey, if you want to win this zone attack, Anyway, very short but sweet guide. There is not a lot in terms of things you need to know for Gladiator. It's a very simple hero. It's a very simple hero in that sense. So yeah, go forth and zone people to death and maybe poke some toes. So thank you guys for watching. As per usual, you guys are fantastic. If you like the video, like it, subscribe, comment. It all helps me a ton and I really, really appreciate it. Oh yeah, something else to note. My girlfriend very sweetly set up a Patreon page on my /the channel's behalf. So if you are the type of person that fancies supporting me even further in the way of some sort of pledge or whatever, there's a list of rewards and advantages you get to being a patron of different levels, and it'd be so sweet of you to do so. So maybe check the Patreon page out, it's in the description. And yeah, regardless, have a great day. Love you guys. Mama Darling out.